Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to be looking into something a little heavier than usual. We're heading over to Alberta, Canada, small town there. And this deep dive is going to be based on an article from the local paper, the AB Post. It's about a recent crime that really shook the community. And we have an expert in criminal law with us today to help us make sense of it all.
It's definitely a very sad case.
Yeah.
And the details are, pretty disturbing.
So the article starts off just laying out like the basic facts. It all happened last year in October at Moonlight Bay on Lake Wabamun. The woman who was in the canoe with the 5-year-old girl, her name is Mary Quinn. She was first charged with failing to provide the necessities of life, but then as the police investigated more, that charge was changed to manslaughter.
Yeah, and manslaughter in Canada is a very serious charge. It doesn't necessarily mean that there was like an intent to kill. It basically means that the death happened because of like a reckless or unlawful act.
Yeah.
So I guess the main thing the court is trying to figure out is if what Quinn did actually fits that description.
Right, and one thing that really stood out to me as strange was that the AB Post says that Quinn and the little girl were total strangers.
Yeah, definitely makes it even more complicated and concerning, for sure. It's not that uncommon for drownings to happen because of some kind of negligence, especially with kids. But the fact that there was no connection between the victim and the accused, well, that makes it very different.
Yeah, for sure. And then there's Quinn's past, too. The AB Post found out that she had been convicted before for breaking into a stranger's house while intoxicated, and she even had some kind of gardening tool with her.
Oh, wow.
And get this happened less than 3 weeks before the incident at the lake.
That's a huge red flag for sure. And it brings up a lot of concerns so she was actually serving a conditional sentence for that first crime.
Yeah.
Which is basically house arrest, right? So just by being at Lake Wabamun, she was already breaking the rules of her sentence. And this is what makes it even more tragic. Because if she had followed those rules, that little girl might still be alive.
It really makes you think about how important it is to follow court orders.
Exactly. It's a matter of life and death sometimes.
So let's go back to what happened at the lake. The AB Post talked to some fishermen who were there that day. They saw Quinn in a canoe, and her arm was in the water like she was holding on to something.
I can see how people would immediately think the canoe tipped over.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense given what they saw.
It makes sense, yeah.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, the little girl's father was frantically searching for his daughter. The article talks about how he was running up and down the shore, just terrified. And then finally, he sees Quinn in the canoe. So, of course, he goes over and asks her about his daughter. But she tells him she doesn't know where she is.
Oh, my God. I can't even imagine what he was going through. Looking for his little girl, hoping for the best, but then to have the only person who might know something deny it all.
It's just heartbreaking. And then it gets even worse. He sees a tiny foot under the canoe, so he jumps in the water and finds his daughter. He tried to revive her with CPR, but it was too late.
That's just awful. And the thing is, the AB Post says the police later figured out that the canoe never actually flipped over.
So if it didn't tip over, how does she end up in the water? And what was Quinn doing with her arm underwater?
Yeah, that's a big question. It's a huge red flag.
Yeah.
I bet that's what made investigators start thinking that maybe this wasn't just an accident. Something else might have happened. And that's where things take a really dark turn. The AB Post mentions that there was someone at the lake that day with a drone, and apparently the footage shows Quinn holding the little girl underwater.
Oh, wow. We should point out that we haven't actually seen this footage ourselves. We're just going off of what the article says. But if it's true, that's huge.
Yeah, it could completely change the case. It's hard to say for sure without seeing the footage, but it could be crucial evidence in figuring out what really happened right before the girl drowned.
I wonder if the defense will try to say that the footage can't be used in court. Like maybe there were issues with how it was recorded or if it violated Quinn's privacy.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. Using drone footage in criminal cases is kind of new territory. There are a lot of legal gray areas still. So the court will have to decide if the footage is valuable enough to outweigh any privacy concerns. It'll be interesting to see how they rule on this. It could set a precedent for future cases.
It definitely makes you think about how technology is changing the way crimes are investigated. We're seeing drones used more and more by police and even regular people. And it seems like the law is having trouble keeping up.
For sure. It's changing so fast. And it's not just about whether it was legal to record the footage. There's also the question of if it's reliable. Like, how do we know the footage hasn't been tampered with? And can we be sure we're interpreting it correctly?
Those are all really good points. I'm sure those questions will be a big part of the trial.
Absolutely. So the AB Post also talks about how Quinn was acting during her bail hearing. It says she was yawning and had her hands behind her back while the judge was talking about the case. which is kind of strange behavior for someone facing such serious charges.
I gotta admit, when I read that, it really creeped me out. It's hard to imagine being so calm in that situation. Does the way someone acts in court ever affect the judge's decision about bail?
It's not the only thing they consider, but it can give them an idea of the defendant's attitude towards the charges.
So you're saying it's possible that Quinn, seeming so unconcerned, could have hurt her chances of getting bail?
Yeah, it's possible. Remember, bail hearings are all about figuring out how risky it would be to release the person. The judge has to think about if the person is likely to follow the rules, if they're a flight risk, and if they're a danger to the public. So if someone acts like they don't care, it could make the judge worry that they won't take the charges seriously. And in this case, the judge decided not to grant bail. She said she was concerned about public safety and didn't think Quinn could be trusted to follow court orders.
Well, that makes sense considering her past and the fact that she was already breaking the rules of her sentence.
Exactly. She had a chance to serve her sentence in the community, and she messed that up.
You mentioned earlier that manslaughter means there wasn't an intent to kill. But what about this footage that seems to show her holding the girl underwater? Doesn't that mean it was intentional?
That's a good question. And that's what the prosecution needs to prove. They have to show that Quinn was not only reckless, but that her actions directly caused the little girl's death.
So even if the footage shows what the AV Post says, it's still not a slam dunk case.
Nope, not at all. The defense could argue that something else happened, like maybe the girl's death was an accident, or that there's not enough proof to say for sure that Quinn was the only reason she died.
It's crazy how complicated these legal cases can get.
Definitely. The prosecution and defense will make their arguments. The jury will look at all the evidence. And it's up to them to decide if Quinn is guilty or not.
It'll be really interesting to see what happens. I have a feeling this is going to be a big national story.
Yeah, me too. It has everything that makes a case high profile. A tragic death, a young victim, a crime that no one can explain. And then you have the whole stranger danger aspect. I bet that's going to really scare people.
It definitely reminds us that danger can come from anywhere. Sometimes it's not the people we know, but someone we've never met before.
Exactly. That's what makes this case so unsettling. It makes us question how safe we really are and how we can protect our loved ones from the unknown.
Yeah, it's a really tough thing to think about, and I'm sure a lot of parents are listening to this and feeling scared. Like, how can you protect your kids when danger can be so random?
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of parents are thinking about that right now. It's a parent's worst nightmare.
So what can we do? It feels like you can't protect your kids from everything.
I think the most important thing is to give kids the tools they need to stay safe without making them feel too scared.
What do you mean?
Well, we need to talk to our kids about stranger danger, obviously in a way that they can understand. We have to teach them that it's okay to say no if someone makes them feel uncomfortable, even if it's an adult.
Right, because we always tell kids to be polite to grown-ups, but sometimes that can be dangerous.
Exactly. We need to teach kids to trust their gut and to speak up if something feels off.
What about when you're out in public? Like at a park or something?
It's all about being aware.
Aware of your surroundings.
Right. Keep an eye on your kids even if they're playing close by.
So you don't have to be right on top of them, but...
Yeah, just stay engaged and know who's around.
Because even a few seconds of not paying attention can be dangerous.
Yeah, it can. It's also good to have clear rules about talking to strangers. Like, tell your kids they should never go anywhere with someone they don't know, no matter what.
Even if the person says they know you or tries to give them something.
Especially then. Those are the tricks that predators use.
It's so scary to think about.
I know it is. And make sure you have a plan if you get separated. Pick a meeting spot. Make sure they know your phone number. And teach them how to find a safe adult to ask for help, like someone who works at a store or a security guard.
Those are all really helpful tips. I think a lot of parents will find those useful.
I hope so. And remember, it's an ongoing conversation. You have to keep talking to your kids about safety as they grow up.
Because what's appropriate for a 5-year-old is different for a 10-year-old.
Exactly.
This case has also brought up a lot of questions about the justice system. Some people are saying that Quinn should have gotten a tougher sentence for breaking into that house before, and that maybe if she had, this tragedy wouldn't have happened.
That's a really complex issue. It makes you think about how we balance rehabilitation and public safety. When someone does something dangerous, like Quinn did, how do we decide what's the right punishment?
It's a really tough question.
It is. Some people believe in being really strict to prevent future crimes. Others think we should focus on helping people change their behavior.
But in this case, giving Quinn a second chance didn't work out very well.
Sadly, no, it didn't. And that just makes the debate even more complicated.
It's definitely something that needs more discussion.
For sure.
Well, I think it's safe to say that we're all feeling really sad for that little girl and her family. It's just a senseless tragedy.
It really is.
It makes you realize how precious life is.
It does.
And it reminds us that we all need to be more careful and do what we can to keep kids safe.
I agree. We can't change what happened. But if we can learn from it and prevent something like this from happening again, then maybe some good can come out of it.
I hope so. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. It was a tough one, but really important. We hope you keep thinking about these questions.
As we sign off, here's something to think about. Does the fact that Quinn and the girl were complete strangers make this whole thing even more disturbing? And if so, why?
Let us know what you think. You can find us online. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.